Hello, and welcome to The Way It Is. My name is Gail Archer, and we have the pleasure of having Mr. William Harvey with us today, who is a spokesman for the Organization of Pan-African Unity. How are you doing?
Fine. Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
down.
Thank you.
You know, some people would say you're a black nationalist. Is that right?
That's correct.
Why is that necessary?
A black nationalist, by definition, means a person who's desirous of having his own nation. We, as black people here in America, we do not consider ourselves Americans, those of us who call ourselves black nationalists. We feel that we were taken out of Africa, our ancestors. We are the descendants of those ancestors. We were made citizens of a nation, not by our choice, but by force of the U.S. government. And we feel that we have been mistreated so badly in this country since we first came here. We would like to have our own nation under our own government so that we can rule and determine for ourselves the quality of life that we would like to live.
Now, there was another man some 50, 60-odd years ago called Marcus Garvey.
That's correct.
Are you a derivative or an extension of the Garveyites, or Mr. Garvey himself?
He was a pioneer in the area of black nationalism, and we pay high respects to him. But in today's black nationalism, we take it a step further. We feel that he did not properly identify our true enemies here in America. He gave us a generalization of what black nationalism should be. He said, Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. We being abroad, trapped in America, want to be a part of Africa, not just spiritually, but physically. We feel that we should participate in the overall development of Africa, that we should have land in Africa, and that we should physically be in Africa governing ourselves. He was not able to accomplish that goal, and his movement, the UNIA, was destroyed by the United States government. Today, the new black nationalist understands what we are up against in totality, the force that we see with our eyes, which is the U.S. government, and the hidden force that Marcus Garvey did not see but felt, that force that brought his movement down. We learned from that.
Hidden force?
The hidden force is those people you never hear of, those people whose identities are kept out of the media, the people who control the movement of money, the people who control international markets, banks, industry, the flow of gold, the flow of food around the world. These people's names are rarely mentioned in news media, but yet they have an impact on world economies and governments coming and going.
Some people would say the same people that you say are doing that are the same people that funded the NAACP, Congress of Racial Equality. I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about when they were first set up, that the Jewish person only was the frontline person to bring the black person along. Mm-hmm. So what would you say about that?
Well, I didn't mention Jewish person in my explanation of what I just said to you.
I'm talking about the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, better known as the WASP.
Ah, okay. I would say that is true to a certain extent. The Jewish person
I think you're talking about the Jewish person.
What do you want to talk about?
Talking about the WASP. You're talking about, you said that they were the same persons that came about to the destruction of the black man in Africa, brought them here to America.
Yes.
Enslaved them here in America.
Yes.
But other people say that the same people that you're talking about are the same people that funded the NAACP in the very, very beginning,
yes, and
the Congress of Racial Equality.
Yes.
So, now, if you take these same people, one of them are doing very good and the other one's doing very bad for us. So can you condemn all of them?
Okay. We are separatists. We have no desire to participate or live in the United States of America. Never did and never will because of the nature of this government.
And that's the organization
of Pan-African Unity.
Okay.
The people who finance and fund organizations such as the NAACP in its founding days and CORE and other types of organizations like that, they fund them for the purpose of convincing blacks that if for some reason we have a chance to make it in America if we would only try harder to become a members of the, the American mainstream, the economic mainstream.
Possible?
We've had 436 years to try and prove it, and to this very date, You see more people sleeping in the subways and roaming the streets of America, homeless and crazy than ever before.
But a lot of them are white, too.
Yes, they are. And a lot of them were white during slavery back in that day. But when we were in Africa and we had our own, there were no homeless people in Africa. There were no starving people. There were no people running around smoking crack. No people unemployed. No people giving up their children to BCW.
But they would say they were living in huts out in the jungle, in the woods. They've done something good for you people. They brought you here. They gave you an education. That's what they would tell you.
They can say all they want, but the facts prove otherwise. Of course people lived in huts in Africa, but they also had great kingdoms where people from all over the world came to learn, study civilization, study protocol, class. Many of the kings in Europe sent their people to Africa to study kingdoms and how people worked in sophisticated, complex societies set up by black people. And they took those attributes back to Europe and instructed their kings on what was going on. Many of the ceremonies that take place in European courts are copies from African kingdoms.
Well, Africa was the great civilization, the first great civilization of which the Greeks and the Chinese all took from,
yes,
and the Europeans and took back to their countries and claimed as their own. But how many blacks do you think here in America would really want to go back to Africa?
Right now, because of lack of knowledge of self, lack of knowledge of history, there are very few, even those who wear the garb and talk the talk. They do not want to go back to Africa and suffer the hardships of living in Africa, today's modern Africa. They would rather stay in America and participate in the conveniences of being an American in spite of the hardships. But we, the pioneering spirits, know that our days are numbered here. This government has a plan to eliminate blacks from this nation because she no longer has use for us. And when you no longer have use for anything, the first thing you do is discard it. This government is not stupid enough to discard us in such a way that a finger can be pointed at her in an international world of court where she can be charged with genocide. But nevertheless, she works meticulously behind the scenes, setting up scenarios in which blacks will fall into and then self-destruct so that she cannot be charged in the International Court of Law.
Some would say that's so much rhetoric. We've heard this all before. What proof do you have?
Crack. Black people do not control the flow of cocaine out of South America or any other Asiatic country into the ghettos of the United States. Ollie North said it very well when he was before the Iran-Contra-Gate hearings. He was just about ready to open up the door and say where this stuff was coming from, how it was being brought into South Florida air bases, and then distributed throughout black communities and other communities in America when a senator from Honolulu told him to shut up. And he will continue that type of testimony behind closed doors. We know what this government is doing. We've studied this government for years, and all of those who have studied the government have come up with proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is the American government that is behind the decimation of black people in America.
Now, your Organization for Pan-African Unity, in reference to the genocide, what are they doing about it to see if they can put a halt to it?
Well, one of the first things we have to do is educate those who do not know, those who have enough humanity left in them to receive a message of what we're trying to get across to them, that there is a master plan to destroy the black man and the black woman in America. We offer them proof of it, which is your crack, your alcohol-saturated communities, your joblessness, your hopelessness, homelessness. You have a high rate of illiteracy amongst young teens, high rate of teen pregnancy, high rate of unemployment, hopelessness just permeating the ghetto. We bring all of these facts before them, then we show how the United States government and the forces that be work on these forces to destroy the black people. We have drawn up charges, formal charges, and presented it to various agencies at the United Nations to charge the U.S. government in The Hague before a world court with genocide on what they're doing to black people, and we are seeking damages from these charges, and we want land included in the settlement.
I understand that Congressman Rangel and others have also spoken about this,
Yes, they have.
and they wanted this put in the form of social programs.
Yes, there's a bill currently before Congress, which is the work of a man by the name of Dr. Robert Brock out of California, who worked for 30 to 40 years bringing about this bill, which would compensate African Americans for the wrongs that were done to them during slavery and the discrimination that took place after slavery. And that bill is called H.R. 3745. The bill was intended to establish a commission to study the effects of slavery on black people and the discrimination that followed thereafter. Once this commission did its study for 1 year, it would present its findings to the entire Congress and make recommendations as to whether or not blacks deserve to be compensated for the injustice that happened to them in America. And if they do deserve to be compensated, in what form should these compensations come?
And that's in process right now?
That's in process right now. The commission took seat approximately 5 months ago, and I think they have about 7 more months to complete their study, and then they will present their findings to Congress.
Now, when you went down to the United Nations and you spoke to these subcommittees in regards to your charges,
Yes.
what is the process of that right now?
Well, the process is first to educate all of the members of the delegations to the World Body, the General Assembly, to let them know that in spite of the American government's media campaign to persuade people around the world that Negroes are happy in America, that Negroes are in fact not happy in America. And we are down in front of the UN to hand out the literature to all of the World Body to educate them as to what we feel. We're looking for reparations, repatriation, and self-determination. Right now, the United States government has its key picked Negroes in, key areas that are their mouthpieces for black people in America. But there's another segment of America that has no intention, no desire to integrate into the mainstream America. For we know that America was not set up to accept us, but instead to reject us.
Malcolm X, before he passed away, also went down to the United Nations with this particular charge, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
What happened to what he was doing? Did it just die out when he was killed?
It didn't die out. As I said, Mr. Robert Brock continued with the work low-key to protect his life. Malcolm was assassinated for that very purpose.
Do you think that was, now, as far as the media is concerned, the Muslims assassinated Malcolm X themselves?
That's the media hype. Malcolm was getting too close to embarrassing the United States government in the world, in the eyes of the world. The American government treasures its world image as being the knight in shining armor, and when that armor is tarnished, it sends its agents out to find out who's slinging the mud. And those agents are ordered to neutralize the source of the mud.
Now, the Organization of Pan-African Unity, what do you have to do to be a part of this?
Well, all of our members are instructed that the lessons learned from the 60s, we don't just go out and accept anybody. Anybody just can't walk through our doors and be a member of the Organization of Pan-African Unity. The first thing you have to do is renounce your U.S. citizenship. Although we do not consider ourselves U.S. citizens, we consider ourselves prisoners of war because of the way in which black people were brought to America. A war took place between European powers and African kingdoms in which the European powers had firepower. They had the gun. The Africans didn't. They had the spear. The gun overpowered the spear, and the Africans were taken captive. Wars took place between various kingdoms, and slaves were taken, captives were taken, and held in fortresses. Those fortresses were then, approached by ships, and those people were shipped throughout the world, South America and North America. We say that we are prisoners of a war that was never really written about in the history books. Europe won that war, and we are here. We are the descendants of those people who were captured. Although a government may label you a citizen, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're afforded the rights of that country.
That could be why you don't get any rights, because you're actually prisoners of war.
That's
And
absolutely
if you
correct.
renounce your U.S. Citizenship, how can you ask for rights of which you're not a part of?
Because as prisoners of war, you have every right to do whatever you have to do to get free. When Malcolm said freedom by any means necessary, he was speaking from the vantage point of a prisoner of war. Prisoners, when you're captured, your only duty is to escape, not try to integrate yourself into the prison system by becoming a prison guard or one of the wardens or, just getting yourself involved in that system. Your duty is to escape from that prison and get back to the place from which they originally captured you. African Americans have been duped into believing that they are now part and parcel of the army which captured and still holds them, and are now participating with that army to overthrow and control other people's lands.
People are coming from all over the world to be part of the United States of America.
Yes, they are. They have absolutely no idea what they're getting themselves into.
What are they getting themselves into?
Easy. Take a person who moves in from Nicaragua, moves into Washington, D.C. Just recently, they had a massive riot in Washington, D.C., in which many of the Nicaraguans and other Central American peoples were fighting the police, saying that the police in Washington, D.C. were no better or worse than the police in the homeland from which they came. See, America has this media thing of putting out information around the world, convincing people, come here. The Statue of Liberty, holding out her arms to the tired masses of the world. But when they get here, they experience the reality of what it means to really live in a racist, white supremacist dominated society.
Well, they say if you mind your business and you do the right thing, then you don't have a problem. But you're out there robbing people and sticking people up and making things difficult for the social atmosphere, then you deserve to be put in prison.
Well, that doesn't say anything for all of these young children in America who are finding bullets flying through their head as they sleep in their beds at night.
They're being shot by their comrades. They live right around them. No one's coming from outside to do this.
But the shooting?
The shooting is going on by their brothers, their sisters, their cousins.
That's true. Where are these young people getting all these guns from? Blacks own not one arms manufacturing plant anywhere in the world. Yet almost every youth in America, especially in inner cities, is armed to the teeth.
Where are they getting them from?
Who manufactures them? They're coming from the American arms manufacturers, Israeli arms manufacturers, South African arms manufacturers, Belgium arms manufacturers.
You actually think they are coming over and saying, I'm going to set up a gang, or I'm going to get an affiliation with a gang, and I'm going to give them arms?
Do you know where Uzi comes from?
No.
It comes from Israel. It's manufactured in Israel. It's an assault weapon for military purposes. What is a young black man on the streets of Harlem doing with a Uzi?
You answer the question.
Conspiracy. Conspiracy to arm and destroy young black people in the ghettos in which they live. It's a massive worldwide conspiracy to depopulate the world, period, of all black people.
How can you get rid of something that's 3/4 of the world?
Easy. Invent a virus and call it AIDS. That's a new virus, manufactured in a laboratory by high-tech scientists hired and fired by the U.S. government for the specific purpose of depopulating this planet of black people.
I had the pleasure of going down to the committee, Black Committee on AIDS. Now, it said, according to the chart, that the white woman was the very lowest in the AIDS
Carrier
virus,
of the virus?
Of the virus, HIV virus.
Yes.
And white man, including homosexual, was also the next, as far as the chart goes.
Yes.
Blacks, way up the scale. They said it was because they didn't practice safe sex.
Oh, it's because scientists studied our nature knowing that black men and black women are always making love. And if you study any laboratory animal, the first thing you want to do is find out its characteristics and traits. Once you find it out, you make a bait specifically to
black
suit
women
it.
and black men don't always make love. That's
Please.
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 You know we do.
No, I don't know we do.
Well, from what I know, we do. They know that, number one, especially in Africa where it really first started, that black people are basically promiscuous, that black men are polygamous traditionally.
Most men are polygamous.
Especially African men. It's pronounced, it's in the open, there's nothing to hide. Men in America, of course, are polygamous, but it's undercover polygamy. In Africa, it's open. Men travel the highways in their trucks and they visit city to city, stopping off at various villages. They would be prime carriers of the AIDS virus, and they would spread it throughout all of Africa. If you look at the study done by the World Health Organization on AIDS in Africa, you'll notice that the AIDS population is basically centered in Central Africa, in Zaire, Kenya, Uganda, right in that region, Central Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also notice that Central Africa, Zaire, is the most minerally rich part of Africa, topping South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get to those mineral resources that the developed world needs to carry forth its plans into the year 2000 and beyond, they must have easy and cheap access to those resources. If African people are there and can charge a decent price like OPEC charges for its oil, that would empower them and depower the industrialized nations of the world. So they must remove those people. What's the best way to remove them? Through their promiscuity. Give them a virus, knowing they're going to make love to each other, and it'll spread that way. Plus, Africa does not have the medical resources to deal with the virus, so it's working.
It's working here, too.
Yes, it is.
Between the ages of 14 and 44, mostly through the female.
This is something that we are going to have to deal with as a people. There is a cure for AIDS, and that's controlling your sex and definitely not dealing with drugs. Of course, if you're injured in an accident and you need blood, you would have to have an intravenous,
Mm-hmm.
to help you live. But the other two, sex with multiple partners and drug use, must be eliminated from our lifestyles in order to combat this most deadly plague. Because if we do not control our penis, we can forget about seeing the year 2000. We'll be lucky if you'll be able to count 100 black people on this planet very soon.
Think it would wipe us out like that?
Look what it did to the American Indians. The U.S. government put smallpox in blankets and spread it throughout their nations, and look at the numbers of Indians in America now. They've been totally decimated.
Do you have any statistics?
Not exactly, but I know that America was widely populated with various Indian nations before the pushing of the smallpox diseases, and then the rounding up of these people and the concentrating them into the reservations, which we live in reservations also. They're called housing projects. And we are suffering the same social dilemma as the American Indian.
Let's get back to your organization of Pan-African Unity.
Yes.
What is your outreach at this particular time? Where are you located?
Well, we're located in New York City, but we have branches in every major city. Our job is to reach those in the inner city who are not deranged and totally out of their minds from drug abuse and social pressures, which is making them perform all types of antisocial behavior, the shootings, the drug sales, prostitution, the whole 9 yards. We trying to reach the young people, especially young black men, who are being used as a tool to push the drugs in the community, use black-on-black violence with the handguns, and impregnating young women and not fathering the child, therefore forcing the women onto the welfare rolls in a state of dependency. We're targeting that group. It's not an easy job.
You got double enemies then. You have the drug dealer.
Yes, we do. Yes, we have the drug dealer. We
and the
have
forces
the
that
master distributors, which is the United States government, and those international forces which would like to see us leave this planet.
They could bring you up for charges of that. Can you prove that they are the major distributor?
Sure. First, just look around the world. It's easy to see. The military bases are placed in various nations throughout the world to protect the flow and the mass production, manufacturing of these drugs. Then they are sent to Europe for processing and then on their way to the United States. It's a massive industrial system to make sure that blacks leave here.
Some people would say that you speak as though you are in sympathy with the communists. But they're trying to become Democrats now. Isn't that a tricky little situation? They're saying, we've been kicking you and we've been doing you in, but now we want you to give us money to help us.
As far as communists doing it to America?
America doing it to communists. You see, now the communists, Russia is saying, we're becoming democratic.
Right.
Now we want you to help.
Well, they're only taking those reparations and resources that are rightfully belong to black people to bolster their own economies in Europe. Black people in America have something coming to them. Congress is willing to give it, but the Negro element in Congress wants more social programs. They want welfare. They want health benefits. We have enough educated homeless people sleeping in the streets. We have enough educated people who are also dying of AIDS and tuberculosis and all of the other venereal diseases that come along with this deprivation, social deprivation. We want to be separated completely. We want our own land. We want our own government, a government based on righteousness. There is no way that we can live under the United States government because the United States government is a government based on lies, deceit, treachery, and murder. We could never live under those types of people, and that's who controls this government.
If you have 1 minute.
Yes.
What is the word that you want to tell young black people or young people of color out there that help get their head straight?
That we are definitely headed for self-destruction and that it is a master plan to remove you from this planet. If you think that selling drugs is a part of rebelling against the system, you've been fooled because you have done nothing but played into the hands of those who are controlling the master plan. If you want to save yourself and your people, put the drugs down and begin to move out of this country and into a land that you can call your own.
To go there without funds, what is that?
That's genocide itself. Because to go there with no resources in which to stand up and do something for yourself would put you really in a more dangerous situation than we are here. We are asking that each individual who's ready to leave America and get out of this morass of social decay be given $150,000 each. Safe, a guarantee of safe passage.
Do they have to leave? Can't you just get the $150 grand and stay? And
how would that benefit you? It would only go right back into the American economy.
Not necessarily.
Yes. Let me explain to you how. The mindset of the average black person in America is, I'll get some money. The first thing I buy is my Gucci bags, pay my telephone bill, get a new pair of shoes from Fiorucci. I need a new telephone. The oven got to go. I need a new oven. New furniture. Before you know it, the entire $150,000 will be right in the hands of all of the major retailers in America, and that black person will be right back where they started, on their knees.
When they gave it to the Japanese for what they had done to them during the war, they didn't have to go anywhere.
Japan is a developed nation. As a matter of fact, Japan is one of the most developed nations in the world. The little bit of money that each Japanese got, which was $20,000, they really didn't need it. It was only a way of saying sorry.
That's all right. I know we're out of time, and we could go on for another half an hour. Mr. William Harvey, I want to thank you so very, very much for being with us, and you're a wonderful spokesman for the Organization for Pan-African Unity. Will you please come back?
Yes, I will.
Thank you so very, very much.
Okay.
I'm Gail Archer, and this is The Way It Is.